Happy Wednesday. It's Alysia here, and I'm very excited to be with you once again for our weekly Global Online Fireside Chat. Today, I'm broadcasting you live once again from a very early San Francisco, California. I've been incredibly busy since our Global Online Investor Fireside Chat this past Sunday, and once again meeting with some truly spectacular entrepreneurs, many of which are on their way to becoming billion-dollar companies. One of them is actually joining us today. This truly is the home of the unicorn. As always, today we have an amazing session planned for you. We have a panel of brilliant VIP guests joining us from across the globe, logging in to help you avoid the pitfalls often associated with being an entrepreneur. I'm sure we have so much to learn from our VIP guests today. Now I've got you all excited. Let me go ahead and introduce you to them before asking them to properly introduce themselves to you. Welcome to California, USA-based Dr. Rebecca Vogels, who's a marketing professional, entrepreneur, leader, strategist, and published author. Unfortunately, Cape Town-based Sean Conde is unfortunately unable to join us, but instead we have one of your favorites joining us here, and Christian Myers will be standing in for Sean Conde. So welcome to Christian. We also have Cameroon-based Natalie Ngembu, who's a leader, coach, and human rights activist. Welcome to Kinshasa, DRC-based Tony Kazumba, who's an engineer, marketing executive. Unfortunately, Tony's having some connectivity issues. He's in Zambia currently, but he will be joining us in the chat room. Welcome to Sri Lanka-based Madawa Edusuria, who is a microfinance expert, fintech entrepreneur, and investor. And welcome to Cameroon-based Ivo Ari Mbongaya, who's a consultant, leader, social entrepreneur, and community builder. Now I've got you all excited. I'm sure everybody love to hear from you. So Rebecca, say hi to everyone.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for the opportunity to be here. Thanks so much, Alysia. My name is Rebecca. I recently relocated to San Francisco from Vienna to join the Salesforce incubator with our company UserSnap, which is a digital product building platform. So my background is in B2B SaaS, and I'm super excited to be here and learn from all of you. Thanks.
Welcome, Rebecca. And for all our extraordinary women entrepreneurs around the world, Rebecca is a very, very special woman entrepreneur here in Silicon Valley. So I'm sure you'd love to reach out to her. Natalie, Nat, say hi to everyone.
Hello, everyone. I'm Natalie. I'm from Cameroon, and I am a social entrepreneur, as well as I work in the non-profit and the for-profit sector. I am specialized in management, leadership, and coaching. And by profession, I'm a journalist. I do anything that can promote entrepreneurship in emerging markets, including taking the content of the fireside chat to people who do not understand English language. That's a project that is underway, and hopefully we'll get to know more about it in the future.
Thanks, Nat. Nat's doing some incredible work for our community around the globe, so very excited to have you join us. Christian, would you like to say hi to everyone?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Darren and Alysia, for including me in this conversation. It's exciting to be with such a diverse group of entrepreneurs working all over the world. Looking forward to learning from them. My name is Christian Myers. I'm an early stage investor in technology companies. I'm based in San Francisco. My background is I helped build two of the largest cloud software companies, Salesforce and SuccessFactors. But I get the most satisfaction today from working with entrepreneurs and feel very privileged to work with all the exciting entrepreneurs I know. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Unfortunately, Ivo's having some connectivity issues in Cameroon. So when he does come back on, we will ask him to introduce himself. Madawa, please say hi to everyone from Sri Lanka.
Hi, Liz. Yeah, hi, Liz. Hi, everybody. Thank you very much. It's a privilege to join with this great online chat. I'm Madhava from Sri Lanka. Basically, I'm into financial sector. I'm specializing micro and SME financing. In addition to, we are into fintech setup. I'm believing sustainable micro financial model and hoping to get other spaces to.
Thank you, Madawa. Very excited you're joining us. Ivo's back. Ivo, please say hi to everyone.
Hello, I am Ari Ivo. I am director at African Center for Community and Development in Cameroon. It has special consultative status at UN ECOSOC, and we are engaged in diverse aspects of sustainable development, of business, capacity building, the empowerment of youth and women. I also run the Green Cradle Project, which is an agroforestry and agricultural project, which focuses on women and youth in Cameroon, as well as an event management establishment with tourism in Limbe, Cameroon, which is called F Complex Guest House.
Welcome, Ivo. And once again, Ivo is one of our biggest champions in Cameroon, so we're very excited to have you join us. Now, I know you want to learn from them, so let me quickly run through some shout-outs. Just before we jump into our questions, on the screen are contact details for our panelists. Feel free to reach out to them. You know you can keep sending your questions through to inspireme@onlinefiresidechat.com, and we'll do our very best to include them. Given how many of you are joining us today, we have champions managed in the chat room. So post your questions and we will do our best to get them answered. Just a reminder, we have community champions and ever-growing meetup groups across the globe. We're now in 60 countries. So well done, everybody, and 80 cities. We're in North and South America, the UK, Europe, Africa, the Middle East, India, Asia, and Australia. If you'd like to meet up with one of your local chapters, we have champions joining us today. As you can hear, feel free to email us. We'll do our best to put you in contact with them. On that note, thank you to all our champions from around the globe. You know this, but you're the heart and soul of our community, and we wouldn't be here without you today. Over the next few months, with all our help, our aim is to get to 100 countries, and we are getting this right. So thank you to all of you. Thanks again to our VIP guests for sharing your knowledge and wisdom so freely. Thanks to our growing family of supporters and collaborators from around the developing world for once again hosting sessions for hundreds of entrepreneurs who don't have access to the necessary bandwidth or understanding of the English language to join our sessions on their own. Thank you to all the presidents, prime ministers, ministers, ambassadors, government ministries, UN offices, World Economic Forum, US Embassy Corners, British Council offices, university campuses, schools, business incubators, Chamber of Commerce's, community centers, and community radio stations for all your hosting support and for raising awareness within your regions. Thanks to everybody from our UN Women team for all your support as well. We're once again streaming across new live platforms today. If you want to share us with your entrepreneurs in your community, make sure to reach out to us so we can make sure to connect with entrepreneurs around the globe. Now we are ready to rock and roll, everybody. You know how this works, but just to make our VIPs feel nice and comfortable, the topic for today's session is how to avoid the pitfalls of entrepreneurship on your journey to success. We're going to pose our questions to each of our panelists, but it goes to our whole panel. Feel free to answer the question. Please keep your answers short so that all your co-panelists get a chance to answer, and then we are happy to come back and circle to you if you have any additional thoughts. So let's put Christian on the hot seat. Christian, seeing you've done this before, we're putting you on the hot seat, and then all our co-panelists can feel free to answer. Let's start off easy. Christian, what makes an entrepreneur different to other people, in your opinion, as a top Silicon Valley investor?
Well, one of the fundamental things that's different about being an entrepreneur that's important to keep in mind if one is going to take care of one's well-being as an entrepreneur is you don't have the roadmap for your work laid out before you. You have to decide what your direction is, what your goals are, and what your priorities are every day and long term. And it's a much different state of being than working for a company where you have a defined role. And that comes with a lot of excitement, but a lot of challenges. And that is one of the fundamental things that makes entrepreneurship different than working for a larger organization.
And something you guys need to know is from the very first time I interacted with Christian, everything he's saying, he asked me every single day. So when he says this, please take note. It's really, really important. Rebecca, any thoughts you want to add in terms of what Christian was saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So I feel as an entrepreneur, it's very hard to come up with like a 5-year plan, 10-year plan, like answering the question really, what will you be doing in 5 years? But I feel the thing that is guiding you as an entrepreneur, and also that's different for every entrepreneur, is really the values you bring to your work. the things you want to get out of it. And for most entrepreneurs, I think that's really the learning experience, or the desire to learn more, to put yourself in new situations, maybe where you know only half of what other people around you know, but you're willing to work like twice as hard to make it up.
Thank you, Rebecca. And I'm going to jump right in and ask you a follow-up question, because you've lived in Europe, you've lived in New York, and now you live in San Francisco. You've met a ton of entrepreneurs. You write for the Huffington Post. What are some of the positive characteristics that you've seen shared by successful entrepreneurs across the globe?
Great question. Yeah. So I feel like one of the biggest things entrepreneurs do is really putting themselves out there. So I think, like Woody Allen said, like 90% of success is just showing up. But just, I mean, showing up is a very big part, I think, and also like knowing where to show up and taking opportunities to be present and go to events and everything. But I think also it's just the beginning, really. So the showing up part is just the first step, I would say. But what's really more important is to ask for opportunities, and don't be shy to really ask other people to help you, and ask for opportunities, even if you don't know what these opportunities could be. So just last week, I talked to a woman from Salesforce about I'm doing like a women in tech project where I'm interviewing women in technology, and I asked her, do you have any idea where I could like promote my project, where I could present what I found in these interviews? And she was super helpful and invited me to give a talk actually this weekend at a tech conference, a women tech conference in India, and recommended me as a speaker for the Dreamforce. And so these things only happened because I asked. And I'm not actually saying this as someone who is like figure this out and does this all the time, but this is more like an advice to myself also, and a reminder to really ask for opportunities, even if you don't know what these could possibly be.
Some fantastic insights being shared, Rebecca, and I'm taking notes as you speak. This idea of asking is critically important, and challenging for a lot of us, especially as women entrepreneurs. Nat, I know you had some insights you wanted to share. We'd love to hear from you. Then, of course, we'd love to hear from Christian and Ivo as well. Nat, please go for it.
I think the difference in being an entrepreneur or lies in the fact that from the start it's always a lonely journey. From the start it's always a lonely journey, like you're embarking on some journey alone, few people to support you. But the good thing about it is that today we are beginning to realize so many new things that we could do to assist these entrepreneurs, especially the ones that are just starting their career as entrepreneurs. There are so many things we could do for them now, like mentorship that could accompany them and they no longer feel lonely. If not, that is the main thing, that an entrepreneur really is that kind of person who undertakes the journey mostly alone. They start it alone, and along the line, people join in.
Thank you, Nat. And you've touched on something really, really important. I think Christian would be the expert to talk here about this idea of loneliness and the depression that comes from being an entrepreneur, and how we actually help manage this, because I think one of our panelists from a previous session touched on it. We as entrepreneurs are often very embarrassed to talk about the depression associated with building our dreams. But Christian, we'd love to hear your thoughts in terms of what Rebecca's been saying, what Nat's been saying. You've experienced it all. Please go ahead.
My pleasure. Yes, building on the insights Rebecca and Nat offered, it's very important to avail yourself of help. The goal is to win as an entrepreneur, and it doesn't matter where you get the answers from. And the best entrepreneurs I've seen set aside their egos, and they try and build a bigger brain for themselves by asking experts in whatever area they need help for assistance. And they're fearless about going about that regarding what Nat said, it is inherently lonely because you're figuring out so many things by yourself. So it's important to remind yourself to build community, to participate in events like this with other entrepreneurs. Even listening in on this radio show gives me and other people working on entrepreneurial ventures a sense of connection that is strengthening. And then mental health is an important part of this. There's a lot of exciting reporting in the press about the positive aspects of entrepreneurship. The downside of that is it can make it appear as if everyone around you is having 100% positive experiences and not experiencing the challenges that oneself is experiencing. But I've seen the biggest invest companies, and it doesn't matter if they're the coolest startups or they're successful public companies, every company has challenges and problems. And those come with an emotional and mental challenge. And so it's very important to remind yourself that you're not the only one experiencing those challenges, and to develop healthy habits to manage those challenges, which include community and include looking for help.
So Christian, I'm going to jump right in here because we had a very interesting experience yesterday, and I think it's important to share with the community. Christian and I had a call with two extraordinary young entrepreneurs doing some incredible work here in Silicon Valley, and Christian was sharing with them the backstory of what it's like to be an investor in Silicon Valley. And he touched on a number of things in terms of the hardness of it, the mental challenges that go through it. And it was a very, very, very interesting conversation that I believe we all could learn from. Christian, I would love for you to just give our community a summary in terms of how hard it is, even being an investor, but investing in the best startups in the world, that it is debilitating. And I'd love for you to share it with the community. And for the best entrepreneurs, it's also horribly difficult at times.
My pleasure. Well, an interesting thing for the entrepreneurs to know who are seeking capital from investors is they face the same challenges. And any professional investor, such as a venture capitalist that's managing a fund, they actually have to go out and raise money themselves. That's where they get the capital that they invest in startups, for example. And what most people don't know is that it's harder often for professional investors to raise capital than it is for a startup. Here in Silicon Valley, a lot of the new and exciting venture funds started by new venture managers who come with a lot of experience, they have been started after the venture capitalist has spent 12 to 18 months trying to raise money from their limited partners. And limited partners are the people and organizations that give money to venture capitalists to invest. So they have to go through the same challenges. And the other thing is, it's also a very long process of getting to know different startups, convincing them that you can add value, and convincing the startups to accept your capital. And that's only the beginning of the journey. You're working with the startups through all of the challenges and opportunities they face. And of course, that affects you because if you're a good investor, you empathize deeply with the entrepreneurs that you've invested in. So it's a similar experience for investors as well.
See, everybody, it's not all glamorous drinking champagne. Thanks for your honesty, Christian. We really appreciate it. Madawa, I know you had some insights you wanted to share, and then we'd love to hear from Ivo. Madawa, please go for it.
Hi everyone. It's very interesting thoughts coming out from everybody. As a entrepreneur, a young entrepreneur, pretty much I would like to introduce as an impact investor. I think, in my view, as entrepreneur, we have to think about the world is full of potentials, opportunities, but we have to think about what is the competitive advantage as an investor and as well as the society. So we always we have to thinking about what is the impact we can make to the company, the people, profit, and the planet. So I think as today's entrepreneurs, we have to think about all those things. In addition, the purpose. What is the purpose as an entrepreneur?
Thank you, Madawa. And we keep coming back to this point. What is your purpose as an entrepreneur? Because one of the things I'm sure we've all figured out is this is a very hard, very lonely, very at times debilitating experience. So you have to have a very strong, compelling purpose, or you won't have enough reason to keep going for years at a time, building this dream of yours. And on that note, I know Ivo's got some insights he wants to share before we jump into our next question. Ivo, please go for it.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think one of the most important things about the work or the feelings of an entrepreneur is the fact that he has to start from scratch. And generally, the conditions are like you have a lack of financing, a lack of visibility, a lack of project design and planning sometimes. And then you have to now create a way of designing a project, of mapping out your stakeholders, and also of creating a long-term goal and vision, which is going to match with a branding operation, which will eventually become your long-term business, and what is going to become what you can offer as consultancy or advice or advocacy for various groups and so on. This means that from scratch, there has to be some leadership, there has to be some empathy, and there has to be a drive towards social innovation, and also a drive towards trying to improve on the lives of people, social conditions, as well as improving on your own well-being as an entrepreneur. In a way, entrepreneurs are holistic thinkers with an intention of working, even if they have scarce resources, in order to generate mammoth change in society.
Thank you, Ivo. You've touched on some very interesting points, the idea of leadership, moving from a founder to a scaler, and of course, adding value to your community and to everyone around you. I know, having spent so much time with Christian as an investor, this is something very important in Silicon Valley and globally. We're having changes taking place in the space, which is very exciting. Nat, I know you had some insights you wanted to share here. Please go for it.
I want to thank Christian for the insight. He was very honest. And that's actually a point that we have neglected a lot. We seem to think that the investors have a perfect life, like they don't have difficulties to face. I think this is one thing we are really ignoring. We have the difficulties the investors face is actually a very good thing, so that entrepreneurs would actually have bear this in mind when they approach investors. I think it will solve a great problem.
Thank you for sharing that, Nat, because I think Christian has seen many entrepreneurs approach him, and every entrepreneur thinks that he lives the most glamorous, exciting life where he just drives around in a Ferrari and eats in 5-star restaurants and burns through all the money, when in actual fact, it is a brutally hard thing to do to be a professional investor, especially in startups. So thank you again for your honesty, Christian, and thank you, Nat, for your insights there. Rebecca, we have the next question going to you, and then, of course, it goes to our panel. Rebecca, based on your experience, you're doing a series interviewing entrepreneurs from around the world. Do you have any insights in terms of character traits that you've seen that can be detrimental to entrepreneurs' success that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel the biggest challenge for entrepreneurs is really to be in your own head for too long. And this is actually true for so many areas of entrepreneurship, I feel. So when you think of product development, it's really detrimental if you're in your own head for too long, because like no one can afford really to build product in a vacuum. And so I interviewed the VP of growth of Hotel Tonight recently, and she told me that at Hotel Tonight, they actually bring potential users in like once a week for a couple of hours just to talk about, not talk about like Hotel Tonight, but talk about their experience with like booking hotels online, what the process is like, what they wish it were like, and how to really improve it. So instead of like building a product and thinking about ideas, they were actually starting with like asking people and asking them for feedback first, which I think was a great lesson for me. So, and it also is not only true for like product development, that it's helpful to get talk to potential users, customers, get feedback from as many people as you can. But like building this kind of communication skills is crucial, I would say. Also, when it comes to team communication and like keeping your co-founders in the loop, keeping your team aligned, and really sharing your ideas early on, like as early as possible, I would say. So that is really a challenge, I feel, in entrepreneurship today that everyone is facing.
Thank you, Rebecca, and fascinating insights being shared by you once again today. Christian, I know you've seen it all, good, bad, and ugly. I've heard some horror stories from you. Please share with our community and be 100% honest.
Well, I really like what Rebecca was saying. One of the most important aspects of being an entrepreneur is listening to your customers, seeking data, almost acting like an anthropologist and watching and listening to what they're doing. And instead of focusing on a technology or what you would like to build as an entrepreneur, focusing on the problem that the customer is trying to solve, because often the problem that is most important for the customer is different than the one you thought would be as an entrepreneur. And there are many businesses that begin in one direction with their products and quickly find out that the real opportunity, the big opportunity, the opportunity that the customers care most about is different than the one they believed would be the most important. So that listening and attentiveness is super important. So I agree with what Rebecca said.
Christian, I'm going to touch on something here because it's another thing we've been noticing while I've been in Silicon Valley, and we'd love our panelists' thoughts on this too. The idea that focusing on your customers' needs and solving their problems. I know something that causes you a great deal of pain is the fact that many tech businesses that are started will fail simply because they don't have paying customers. You know, the majority of our community is in the emerging markets. Do you have any insights to share in terms of helping our entrepreneurs succeed as much as possible when it comes to solving customer problems and moving away from pure tech businesses, rather building for a customer and finding a tech partner to help them scale? Do you have any quick insights you'd like to share here? I think it's an important point to touch on.
Well, I think there's a lot that can be learned. So I'm speaking on behalf of Silicon Valley entrepreneurs who typically try to get outside capital very early in the life cycle of their company to fund their operations. I would say to all Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, there's a lot that can be learned by observing entrepreneurs elsewhere in the world where, as Ivo touched upon, constraints are not viewed as obstacles. They're viewed as an inherent part of being an entrepreneur. And instead of seeing those as limitations or things that are going to block you, they're actually opportunities to be creative. And instead of only thinking about taking investor capital to fund your operations, it's important to remember that the vast majority of entrepreneurial businesses in the world are created and sustained by building a product customers want, selling that, and funding your operations with your own cash flow. And it's important to remind ourselves that that is a very powerful model, and it's the dominant model that's fueling entrepreneurship around the world.
Thank you, Christian. We're definitely going to be coming back to this with some other questions we'd love to pose to you. Ivo, please go next. You have some insights you wanted to share.
Yeah, exactly. I was wanting to actually hammer on the point that creating connections and actually seeking to understand what your customer base wants, or a needs-based approach, is very important in the work or the life of an entrepreneur. For instance, if you do not know that women farmers are having difficulties or are spending much more time in the farm because of the rudimentary tools that they use in agriculture, you will not be able to calculate probably the gaps between the contribution of females in families and males, and you will not be able to calculate probably how that can impact on maybe the overall contribution of women to the greater community. If you can't know that from farmers that, for instance, the majority of them are selling stunted banana species or plantains, you probably wouldn't want to carry out a process of tissue culture of say in plantains, or to try to maybe introduce genes that are giant in order to intervene in this market. So it means that there is an aspect which is very needed in entrepreneurship, and that is going to your customer base, understanding what people need, trying to design things based on that. I can actually give you an example. I actually talked to thousands of people already, talked to farmers, talk to women groups, talk to different groups to be able to map out maybe trajectories that I can understand what they actually need. And it's only from those kind of things that you can see, probably maybe the gross margin for tomatoes is this per hectare, maybe the gross margin for cassava is this per hectare, and therefore you can encourage maybe companies that are interested in agriculture to see the need to invest in such possibilities. So too it goes with tech. I think the tech entrepreneurs and those who are interested in investing in social interventions actually are in an advantage if they liaise with social entrepreneurs, in that they understand the tempo of communities. They understand what people need. They face the same problems that maybe those tech entrepreneurs would like to solve. For instance, if there is diminishing fisheries, maybe a tech entrepreneur will be thinking about trying to create those technologies that can help to improve maybe the production of freshwater fish and so on. But these kind of things come from data on the ground, from the voices of people who need these facilities. And I think that in a way, creating the links both virtually and on the ground is very important in establishing an enabling environment for interactions between entrepreneurs and investors.
Thank you so much, Ivo. We're going to keep coming back to you with your points. I know we've got a lot of questions to get through. Madawa, quickly share your insights. I know Rebecca, Nat had some thoughts, and Rebecca. Madawa, please, can you quickly jump on in and share your insights?
Yes. My thing is that as an entrepreneur, the first thing is we need to setting up the objectives and the goals. Generally, we can see unattainable and unachievable goals and objectives. I think disheartening. We only human, and if we are not reaching our goals, we are getting disappointing, maybe disheartening over time. I think because of this, it is very critical to avoid setting impossible goals. So therefore, we always setting up achievable and attainable goals. Then, end of the day, everybody will be happy: investors, entrepreneurs, employees, and all. Thanks.
Thanks, Madawa. Nat, I know you had some insights to share here. Please just speak up. We're having some connectivity issues from your side. Please jump on in and share your thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Ivo actually already touched part of what I wanted to say. It is a point we need to emphasize, especially in emerging markets. Collaborating with social enterprises could do a great job for tech startups, because while they are focused on the technology side, the social entrepreneurs are in the field, touching base with every segment of the society. That would serve as a great market for them. So I think collaborating with social entrepreneurs, with non-profit organizations could do the great job for the tech startups in emerging markets.
Net, some fantastic insights. This is a message we keep hearing even from some of the top CEOs on the African continent, collaborating with nonprofits and organizations such as yourselves, critical for success. Rebecca, jump on in, please. Let us hear your thoughts.
Sure. I would actually like to circle back to something Christian said about starting really with the customer first and putting the user in the center of what you're doing. And I feel you don't only have to put the customer first, but you also have to talk when you're trying to sell your product. You really have to start with the customer, which can be super tricky when all you do is building your product all day. But the reality is that most people don't care about your product. They care what they can do with your product. So I feel in terms of talking about your product, marketing your product, and essentially selling it, it's super important to also keep that in mind, that you really have to think about your communication from a user and customer standpoint.
Thank you, Rebecca. And our panelists today have been sharing some fantastic insights. I know we're running out of time. We've got a lot of questions from all of you to get through. So I'm going to pose this next one to Christian, but it goes to all our panelists. Christian, you've seen and done it all, as we all know. We'd love to hear from you. How do, number one, our entrepreneurs not get trapped by some of the pitfalls your co-panelists have been talking about? And more importantly, even than that, is we all have this opportunity to go from founding a business to scaling a business if we build our businesses well. We'd love to hear from you. Also, how do you go from being a founder to being a scaler without it making you crazy in the process?
Thank you. On the first topic, how do you avoid the pitfalls? I think it comes down to understanding what they are and keeping them in front of you and regularly checking in with yourself as to on questions such as, do you know what your goals are? Have you prioritized those properly? Are you working on the most important ones? Are you staying focused? Are you generating cash sufficient to get to your next set of milestones? A lot of it is about keeping track of the things that help you avoid the pitfalls and doing that in a regimented way. You could even have a piece of paper in your notebook that you refer to regularly. And then an extended way to do that is to involve your community or your business partners. So asking them, how do you think I'm doing on each of these key points? That basic exercise is very valuable. And then with regards to the question of going from a startup founder to someone that is scaling the business, it's also important for everyone to pay attention to the transitions that occur in a business. It's very different to run a 10-person company versus a 2-person company. And it's very different to run a 50-person company versus a 10-person company. And it's very different to have customers outside your local region. And all of those transitions mark important points for entrepreneurs to step back and really set aside their preconceived notions and then look at what's happening with the business with fresh eyes, because there are going to be important changes that you need to attend to. So it's important to notice transitions, see what's going on, and then refine your plans and your behavior.
Thank you, Christian. And something I'd love for you to touch on, even just for a very short period of time, is The transition between going from founder to scaler often involves raising external funding. And one of the things I've noticed here in Silicon Valley and from a lot of our entrepreneurs around the globe is that there's a certain amount of anxiety, stress, depression in terms of asking for that money. It's a time-consuming process. It's not as easy as it often looks from the outside. I'd love for you to touch on that in terms of this growth process that entrepreneurs take place.
Well, I think with respect to raising capital in order to grow your business, it's important to keep in mind that it's actually not a distraction from managing your business. One of the most important qualities in a CEO is their ability to raise money for their business or to create money. And whether that's working on sales with customers or going to investors to raise capital, it is fundamental to the lifeblood of the company. It is the lifeblood of the company, and it's one of the most important jobs. And I think it becomes a lot more enjoyable if you keep that in mind. The other thing is, as people have talked about, it's a big advantage to have a mission for your company that you believe in, that you think is special. If you believe that, it becomes so much easier to talk to customers. It becomes so much easier to talk to investors. You find yourself doing that automatically. So one way to give yourself a long-term competitive advantage is to have a mission, a social mission for your company that you believe in from the start, because that will carry you a long way.
Thank you, Christian. Okay, Nat, I know you had some insights. Please go for it. Then Rebecca. Nat, are you with us? Rebecca, you want to jump on in? I know Nat's having some connectivity issues. Rebecca, go for it. Then Nat will come back.
Happy to. I want to add something to what Christian said about going through transition, because I really feel that is defining. That's something that's defining every startup, no matter in which area you are. And I feel like going through these transitions as a startup, like not once or twice, but it's like a constant process. I feel it's like probably the most stressful thing, but it's also the most exciting thing to do, and probably the reason why people start new companies or join new companies, because you will have basically multiple roles, you will have multiple jobs. There will not be a job description for what you're doing. So you basically have like 3 jobs, but they will all be with the same company. And that, I think, is one of the most exciting things you can do and look out for.
Thank you, Rebecca. And I know we're living in very exciting times. I think there's not a young person on the planet that doesn't want to be an entrepreneur, and it's very inspiring to watch all of you build your businesses. Nat, I know you had some insights to share, and then Ivo. Nat, go for it.
Okay, I think avoiding pitfalls is all about being flexible and preemptive too. We have to be able to adapt easily to change and fast enough to realize when we notice a change is coming, if we want to stand the test of time. Because when you design a product from the start, you do not know what will happen in the future. There could be changes in the market. You have to be swift enough to realize those changes and try to adapt to that. And then it's also about not using one-size-fits-all solutions. Like somebody in the tech industry doesn't have the same problems you have in another industry. So study your industry, study the market, and master that without wanting to copy from somewhere else and paste the solutions to your business, which might not necessarily apply in your sector.
Thank you, Nat. And I think that the concept of being flexible as an entrepreneur is critical to your success. We see it in the emerging markets that entrepreneurs are hugely flexible. Maybe it's to do with all the challenges we have to overcome on a daily basis to build our businesses, but it's very inspiring. Ivo, we've got some insights from you. Please go ahead.
Absolutely. I think what Nat has just said is very important. flexibility is really the key. And in flexibility, you have the capacity to adapt, to change, which is very important when you're just starting a business or the business is at its early stages. And with that, it means you must have multiple tactics. It is a combination of your tactics that you have, that you come up with a strategy, which is going to be the long-term goal of your organization. And it therefore means that the beginning is usually a learning curve. And I can give that with practical examples. I was engaged in poultry farming, and within that, I had to discover that what I knew at that time was about white diarrhea, and I didn't know about green diarrhea, which was a more terrible kind of disease that kills poultry very fast. If I didn't strategize to diversify the business with pig farming, then I would have been at zero. Because of the fact that I didn't understand fully the information on poultry farming. So at the beginning, it's usually nice to be fluid, to be able to involve more than one thing that is going to be able to sustain the business, because sometimes, even though entrepreneurs are known to start, even though they fail, it is usually the entrepreneurs that have an alternative mechanism to bounce back that usually end up becoming successful at the end of the road.
Thank you, Ivo. You've touched on some fantastic insights there. Christian, do you have anything to add in terms of what your co-panelists were saying here?
Well, I love what both Ivo and Matt were saying, and it's really important to always ask, does this make sense for my business? It doesn't matter what other people are doing around you if it doesn't apply to your business and it doesn't make sense to your business. So I think that is one of the most important things for all entrepreneurs, is to always think critically and think for themselves. And as everyone has talked about, look to the data and ask questions such as, what do customers care about? And what are they trying to solve? So thank you.
So Christian, I'm going to jump right in here. I know our time is limited. Thinking about your customers, thinking for yourself, all very important. But ultimately, as entrepreneurs, it comes down to one thing. I know we don't often like to discuss this, but it's about money. And money is a huge issue for entrepreneurs. And often entrepreneurs who bootstrap are in the mindset that we have to save every penny. Having been an entrepreneur in South Africa multiple times running and not taking venture capital funding, I know this very, very well. Christian, we're posing this question to you, but it's going to your co-panelists as well. Do you believe that constantly trying to save every penny and building your business ultimately hinders your growth or propels you forward for success?
I think that's a function of what the entrepreneur's goals are. For some people, their goals may be to amass a certain amount of personal capital, and reserving profits from the business would make sense for them. For other people, their goals may involve growing the business, and that becomes a balancing act of always having capital reserves, but also reinvesting capital into the company to grow it. And so I think that's another area too, where it comes back to what makes sense for me and my business. And on that topic, it's easy for entrepreneurs to forget about themselves in the equation. And a good practice for entrepreneurs is always to remind themselves that the whole reason they're doing this is because they're trying to reach some goal for themselves. And have they forgotten about that? That's a good question for entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Christian. I know Madawa's got some insights he wants to share there. Madawa, please go for it. And then Nat, you go for it next.
Yeah, hi. Quick one. I think gauging demand is any product or service is one of the main things. We have to find out how strong the demand is for our product and services. Is it a product or service that most people need or want? Does it fit with current trends? So I think if we clearly gauge the demand, could be one other important focus as an entrepreneur.
Thanks, Madawa. Nat, any thoughts here?
And yes, I actually think if an entrepreneur designs his business well before, ahead of time, they could be able to plow back profit into the business without affecting growth in any way or affecting their personal lives in any way. So I think it's all about designing. In the real sense, plowing back profit into your business is not a bad idea. You could actually save money and reinvest in your business without having to affect anything negatively if you plan well ahead of time.
Thank you, Nat. Got our next question here. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, but I know you guys have tons of questions you're sending through. Rebecca, this next question goes to you. As I say, you've lived in Austria, you've lived in Germany, New York, San Francisco, very different cultures, very different lifestyle choices. I know people have said this about me frequently. Do you believe that entrepreneurs can be too driven to succeed based on what you've seen?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a tough one. I don't think you can be too driven to succeed, but I mean, your drive can get to a point where it's not healthy for you, I would say, to continue at the pace you're going. And that is touching upon the mental health issues we talked about earlier. In general, I feel drive is the most important thing you bring as an entrepreneur, and fostering that is extremely important. And saying yes to opportunities as they emerge is extremely important for an entrepreneur. But you kind of have to really also like apply this entrepreneurial mindset to your own life and know like what you as a person need and how much you can give, and also take some time off when you need it.
Thanks, Rebecca. Christian, you see some extremely ambitious entrepreneurs. Some of them work way too hard. I know you've commented, I often work too hard. I know you've said Darren also works too hard. Do you believe that an entrepreneur can be too driven to succeed and cause themselves damage in the long run?
Well, I agree with what Rebecca said in the sense that you can work against your own health and well-being, but it all comes down to being conscious about your choices. There's no way to have it all, and whenever you're working on something as demanding as building a company, you're making choices and you're making sacrifices. And the people that come through that with a great sense of satisfaction are conscious about those choices. And the people that end up unhappy haven't thought about those choices. And just a note for all of the wonderful people listening to the show, you'll read in the press about companies that have grown fast, where the founders are taking the company to a public listing. One thing to know is that they have made incredible sacrifices to get there, and sacrifices in their personal lives, and some of them don't think it was worth it. And so I make that point because it's really important to know what your goals are and what your priorities are, and not to follow what other people have done if you're setting out on an entrepreneurial venture.
Thank you, Christian. We really appreciate your honesty there. Christian has told me some horror stories from entrepreneurs that have theoretically lived the startup dream, taken their companies public, and there's a very dark side to this. The idea of having a compelling vision that you really believe in and a mission that you support no matter what, and your community supports, is critical for your success. So take Christian's words of advice very, very close to heart. Nat, I know you had some thoughts you wanted to share there. Ivo as well. Nat, please go for it.
Thank you, Christian, for the insight. I mean, you actually touched part of what I wanted to say. But what I want to add is the fact that entrepreneur, we are beginning to change the way things work now. Like if I have a dream, I shouldn't try to build it alone. It's when you try to build it alone that you really encounter so many difficulties, and all the stress and all the pressure can really weigh you down. If you try to get people that believe in this dream, that share your dream and that share your vision and could work with you, like building a team, could be very crucial to your success and could actually help reduce a lot of stress that comes with being an entrepreneur.
Thank you, Nat. Ivo, you have some insights you quickly want to share there?
Yeah, I just want to add that actually moderation is also very important. While one is an entrepreneur, you have other aspects of your life you also have to manage. And I think the rule should be that you should have an ambition to develop and to protect your business, but it should not be an inordinate ambition.
Very, very smart words of advice from one of our Cameroonians. Now we're going to ask our VIP guests to prepare their tweet piece of advice for all of us to go ahead and apply to our businesses. Thanks to everyone for a truly amazing session. Just to keep you posted on our upcoming sessions with some of the world's best joining us again as panelists. On August 23rd, stop thinking and start doing. Is it really that easy? I know sometimes we as entrepreneurs procrastinate and we have analysis paralysis. Going to be a fascinating session, that one. Then on the 30th of August, accelerators and incubators. Do they really make a difference to the success of your startup? We've got some of the best incubators and accelerators from around the world joining us. So if you're looking to join one of them, definitely worth listening in to that session. Remember to keep us up to date on all your progress and exciting news. You know we love hearing from you. You can always email us at inspireme@onlinefiresidechat.com. You can find me as well as our VIP guests and our champions on LinkedIn. You know our VIPs love hearing from you, so don't forget to reach out to them and to tell them how your business is growing. Don't forget, if you enjoyed today's session and feel there are other entrepreneurs around the world that would be empowered and grow and learn from our fireside chats, make sure to share the invitations with them. Remember, we're trying to reach our 100-country goal, and with all your help, we know we can make this happen. Now, let's ask our VIPs to please share their tweet piece of advice, starting with Rebecca. Rebecca, please share your tweet piece of advice.
My advice really is ask others for opportunities.
Very, very, very good piece of advice. Ivo, please share your tweet piece of advice.
Have an attainable goal, research and identify what and who works for your strategic goal.
Very good advice from a very smart African entrepreneur. Nat, your tweet piece of advice.
Work hard, but work smart and have fun.
Great advice. Christian, your tweet piece of advice.
Always remind yourself of your goals and why you started your venture.
Thank you, Christian. Madawa, please share your tweet piece of advice.
Yeah, be a responsible entrepreneur or investor.
Love it. My tweet piece of advice, everybody, remember to be grateful for all you have. As we say, we're living through exciting but very scary times. It's a privilege to be an entrepreneur. It's a privilege to have our community, to be loved and supported by people around us that are helping us build our dreams. It's a privilege to have all of you as friends and get to learn from these extraordinary business leaders. So never take it for granted. Thanks again, everyone, for a truly, truly amazing session. We want you to have an amazing week. As our VIPs would tell you, keep hustling and never, ever, ever give up. Now on the count of 3, we're going to ask our VIPs to scream bye. So 1, 2, 3. Bye, guys.
Bye. 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 Bye.